Report for today. It is a fabulous Friday edition. It's November 8th, 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me in studio is my co-host, Joe Hagmann. Together, we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Folks, you're about to hear 3 hours of a great program, great programming, a lot of information in which we need to sort through together, all of us, you and I. That's you, me, Joe, and I. Folks, you're listening to the only show we believe where the news is broadcast. We dissect the news and go beyond the headlines and bylines and the fog of disinformation to bring you what's important, what will be affecting your lives, whether it's tomorrow, next week, next month, or even next year. New listeners, folks, we broadcast live every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on the internet at HomelandSecurityUS.com. And thanks to Troy and the Christians United Broadcasting Network, you can find our live broadcast at the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. And each and every one of you, I want to thank you. Joe and I want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for joining us, for tuning into us tonight and every night. And thank you for your belief and trust in us as we walk through this minefield of current events and recent events and even old history together. And I want to thank you for everyone who's helped us stay on the air. It's a challenge. It is a constant battle. But thank you for your prayers, for telling others about the show. And we have actually grown into a worldwide broadcast, and we're very proud of it. Joe, it's a great Friday night to be sure.
Yes, it is. And we have a whole bunch of news and information to get into. There are things going on with all areas of important issues. We have earth changes and storms happening, superstorms. We have information on something I'm going to send you from the IRS I want you to look at before I even talk about it. We have Fukushima news. We have Israel, Iran talks today in Geneva, and one of the main headlines out of there is U.S. abandoning Israel, and that is not a good sign. And secretly, the president has been giving or pulling back sanctions for about 5 months now. He's been pulling back sanctions that he had implemented or that was implemented on Iran. And the president of Iran not too long ago said that they were going to never use their nuclear technology to create weapons. Now there are people inside the government saying different. I'm going to open up right now, I guess, with a short minute clip from President Netanyahu making a statement following a meeting with John Kerry today. Here it is.
I met Secretary Kerry right before he leaves to Geneva. I reminded him that he said that no deal is better than a bad deal. And the deal that is being discussed in Geneva right now is a bad deal. It's a very bad deal. Iran is not required to take apart even one centrifuge. But the international community is relieving sanctions on Iran. For the first time after many years, Iran gets everything that it wanted at this stage, and it pays nothing. And this is when Iran is under severe pressure. I urge Secretary Kerry not to rush to sign, to wait, to reconsider, to get a good deal. But this is a bad deal, a very, very bad deal. It's the deal of the century for Iran. It's a very dangerous and bad deal for peace and the international community.
That was Prime Minister Netanyahu today saying this is a bad deal and talking about the sanctions that are being lifted, the U.S. Lifting financial sanctions as well as other sanctions that have been imposed on Iran by the United Nations and the U.S. for years. And I'm not too familiar with all the details of this story, but what we'll do is go through what I do know, what we do know. As you heard in that audio there, John Kerry met with Netanyahu today in Geneva, and they were talking about the future of Iran's nuclear capabilities, and obviously There has been threats made to the country of Israel by the former president of Iran, and there's still a hostile attitude towards Israel all throughout the region there. A lot of that has been fomented by the Arab Spring and things that we have done as a nation. But the headline that really caught my eye today out of all this was by a Lieutenant Colonel, Ralph Peters, who says, "We have abandoned Israel."
Not only have we abandoned Israel, folks, we have painted them into a corner. We are systematically cutting off their options, and they will have to do something on their own. And I had written about this back in December of, I believe it was December of 2008, or perhaps the beginning of 2009, saying that this was going to happen. This, according to my insider source, who said, look, you've got no idea. We're not only going to abandon Israel, but turn on Israel. And that's where we're at right now.
From the timesofisrael.com, the website, there is an update. Obama calls Netanyahu, restates vow to keep Iran, or to keep bomb from Iran, and this is after everything that was said between the Netanyahu and Kerry and the meetings. It says, U.S. President Obama spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu Friday night to discuss the ongoing efforts by Secretary of State John Kerry and other Western diplomats to reach an agreement on Iran, and Obama underscored Washington's strong commitment to preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and discussed the U.S.'s ongoing efforts to advance a peaceful resolution in the international community's concerns. News of the call, coupled with the convergence of the Western ministers in Geneva on Friday and the imminent arrival of Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Chinese Deputy Foreign Minister on Saturday, deepened the expectation that the deal between the world powers and Iran was reaching its final stages. The conversation between American and Israeli leaders came hours after Netanyahu urged Kerry on Friday not to rush to sign a deal with Iran over its controversial nuclear program. And part of an audio I heard earlier that was not in this audio of Prime Minister Netanyahu, he talks about compromising. He will not compromise with Iran. He will not compromise with these countries that are hostile towards Israel. He says that he will never compromise. And whether, we know that the Iran nuclear scientists have been being systematically taken out, murdered in the recent years. We know that the president of Iran came out not too long ago and said that they would never use their capabilities to make weapons. And we have some information that goes against that today, as parts of the government have come out and said, well, we're going to enrich uranium. Some reports are saying they're weeks away. And now Obama's secret Iran deal, long before nuclear deal was in reach, the U.S. was quietly lifting some of the financial pressures on Iran. A Daily Beast investigation reveals how the sanctions were softened. This Obama administration began softening sanctions on Iran after the election of the Iranian new president in June, months before the current round of nuclear talks in Geneva or the historic phone call between the two leaders in September.
Think about this, though, and compare how this works out. Kerry, of course, this Obama regime is lifting sanctions from Israel, or from Iran, and now Kerry is turning around and threatening Israel with sanctions themselves. Is Secretary of State John Kerry using the threat of tougher European sanctions on Israel to press Prime Minister Netanyahu into land concessions with the Palestinians? Yes. By the way, Kerry is in Israel right now to advance negotiations between the Jewish state and the Palestinian Authority. There is no negotiations, really. I got to tell you, go ahead.
No, Netanyahu said that he will not compromise with Iran. He will not compromise with Palestine. He will not compromise with those nations around them that are hostile. That continue to have rhetoric against Israel or, have these soft attacks or small rocket attacks. He said he's not going to compromise with any of the people.
Yeah, earlier today I was on the telephone with Israel National News and talking with a source there. They're reporting in Israel that Kerry is using the EU sanctions to blackmail Israel into complying with talks aiming at creating a Palestinian state. That, and here is what you need to know. These talks, this Palestinian state, would include the West Bank, and it would divide Jerusalem. Now, what do we know about dividing Jerusalem, at least from the Bible? And even the source at the Israel National News said, "Oh boy,
well, I know if God
biblical.
is not the one dividing Jerusalem or Israel, then we're going to have serious consequences."
Well, we do know that that's not to be done. Now, according to my source, and this was also verified via Aaron Klein, a very reputable reporter, the news agency, my source, is stating that Kerry reportedly told Netanyahu that he's talked to his European friends, and that if negotiations fail, in other words, if Israel does not acquiesce, Israel can forget about participating in the European Research and Development Program Horizon 2020, which means ultimately there's going to be a boycott, there's going to be sanctions, and more and far weightier sanctions and actions to boycott Israel will follow. So these are already being prepared, and it's going to cause incalculable damage to the Israeli economy as well as the relationship between Israel and the United States. Again, folks, just open your Bibles and you'll see how this plays out. And this is John Kerry.
What are a few sanctions among allies?
Oh man, it's crazy.
Yeah, and this Colonel Ralph Peters says that Obama's foreign policy is always the same. He promises a Ferrari and delivers a bicycle with 2 flat tires. And it goes on to talk about this idiotic deal with Iran. When asked why the Obama administration would lift sanctions resulting in helping the Iranian economy, Peters said that they are doing it in part to take pressure off themselves over the Obamacare rollout debacle so they can say that they've delivered a win to the American people. And as I said earlier, I'm not familiar as to the reasons and legality behind sanctioning Iran, but I don't know what has changed that would let them lift the sanctions. And obviously there is a lot of negative feedback to that move, and doing it secretly does not help, I might add.
Well, we are entering into a very dangerous time period. And by the way, part and parcel to all of this, Saudi Arabia and nukes. Saudi Arabia is able to obtain atomic bombs at will through a secret pact now with Pakistan. Think about this, folks.
I saw this and briefly read over it. Now, they're going to be trading nuclear weaponry amongst themselves?
Meaning what? No, Saudi Arabia is able to obtain bombs at will
from Pakistan.
From Pakistan, correct.
Pakistan is one of the most nuclear-armed countries in the world.
This could be accomplished a lot quicker than Iran can make weapons, for example. Now, I think it was this past week, this past Wednesday, the television news program Newsnight cited a senior decision maker in NATO in claiming that Pakistan had already built nuclear weapons ordered by Saudi Arabia. In other words, they're ready to be shipped. They include finished warheads that can be affixed on long-range missiles and are now sitting ready for delivery as soon as Riyadh asks for them. Now think about that. Think about the shift in the balance of power in this area. And consider, if you will, the rapid escalation that we're seeing from Arab Spring to now this nuclear capability of, or soon-to-be nuclear capability of Saudi Arabia. Folks, it's a new world over there.
Well, Russia has the highest amount of warheads, followed by the U.S., France, China, the U.K., then Pakistan follows behind the U.K. at number 6. And
but yeah, I know, Joe, and we can cite statistics, but
no, I just wanted to give people an idea.
I got to tell you something, and this surprised the living daylights out of me, folks. Do you know when this agreement between Pakistan and the Saudis, was really solidified, at least according to the British sources? In 2003, during the Bush administration, immediately following the invasion of Iraq by the United States. The changing security environment in the Middle East, well, epitomized by the removal of Hussein in Iraq, Gaddafi in northern Africa. It led to the prevalence of Iranian interests in the country, I suppose, when you're talking about Saddam Hussein and Iran. Or Iraq, having Iranian interests in Iraq. This led Riyadh to turn to Pakistan for assistance. And if you see how these unlikely allies are shaping up, well, what's behind this? What's behind it is the old world order now reforming itself into this new world order, same people, perhaps different faces because of the generational issues. But now we're seeing this power balance shift. And the foreign ministry of Pakistan, they're saying that the allegations of a nuclear pact with Saudi Arabia were speculative, mischievous, and baseless. Well, the long trail of breadcrumbs from 2003 to 2013 over the past decade, it certainly makes that statement untrue. So you're seeing deception at every level. But think, folks, think about what's happening here with the balance of power in the Middle East and about the warheads. So my question to you, and we'll be taking your calls throughout the program. If you can be as on point as possible, we'd appreciate that. The number, by the way, 661-244-9839. But think about how this balance of power has shifted. Think about who's behind this balance or shifting of this power balance, and think about what this means for Israel, and what this means biblically for all of us.
Yeah, we definitely have some studying to do to, if we don't already know, what the Bible and prophecy says about what will happen in the future here. Switching gears here, we have a humongous storm. People are calling this one of the strongest storms ever to hit the Philippines. The storm has now slammed into the Philippines. One of the strongest storms on record slammed into the central Philippines, killing at least 4 people, forcing hundreds of thousands from their homes. And we're going to play a quick audio clip here of what has transpired since this has made landfall. This is a Typhoon Hagmann, and it slammed into the Philippines with 215-mile-an-hour gusts of wind.
Experts are calling it the strongest storm on Earth this year. Imagine experiencing winds of 100 miles an hour. Then double it. The island nation of the Philippines has been battered overnight, forcing millions from their homes, seeking shelter anywhere they can. This amateur video gives some idea of the power behind the storm. There are reports of landslides, flooding, fallen trees and widespread damage. Power and phone lines are down, leaving communications with the islands most affected almost impossible. And it's not really surprising, looking at these images released by the US Navy's Typhoon Warning Center, that meteorologists and weather forecasters were able to predict so accurately just how big the storm would be. And imagine how terrifying a warning for the thousands of people in its path. In preparation, many took the opportunity to secure their homes and their possessions. This is a country well used to stormy weather. An average of 20 typhoons hit the Philippines every year.
We're scared whenever November or December, because we've already experienced typhoons.
On Palawan Island, the relief early, and in the country's president.
All right, you guys get the idea. I don't know what was going on with that audio there, but one of the biggest storms of the year, the biggest storm of the year. And 750,000 people in the Philippines have already been forced to flee from their homes. It's a Category 5. It was a Category 4 in the U.S., nearly in the top Category A5. And they go on to say that because of the cutoff of communications, it's impossible to know the full extent of the casualties and the damage, and getting real-time information about that. But there are so many people. I mean, remember the earthquake and the tsunami in Indonesia? There are so many people in these countries that live in the coastline, near the coastline. I think even in America, you have 70, 80% of the people that live 100 miles within the coast. And it's even worse in other countries that are not as developed as we are for the resources and the ability to gather water and other supplies. But this is going to end up being a huge disaster, and our prayers need to be with the people of the Philippines. As an interesting story I did see about this, about the people in the Philippines, they are praying and turning to God because they are afraid of what this storm is going to bring on their country. And I think that's a great idea. But one thing, Filipinos cry out to God to spare nation from super typhoon. Now, why do we need to have a storm come upon us for us to repent and for us to, cry out to the Lord? That is something that we need to think about. But this from Christian News, or ChristianNews.net. It says Christians and others in the Philippines, including an NGO meteorologist, have been crying out to God in prayer throughout the day as a super typhoon has made landfall and is expected to wreak havoc. It's the strongest storm to pass through the region this year, surging at speeds of 195 miles per hour and gusts up to 230. The typhoon has the power to cause great destruction to everything within its path. Homes, businesses, historical landmarks are all at risk, and flooding is also a significant concern. The people there say this. They say, "Please forgive our sins and our shortcomings. We know you are a loving God. Your children here on earth, especially in the Philippines, are crying out loud. You, Lord," he wrote in one status, "spare us from this powerful storm. Send your holy angels to protect us, O God. Instead command them to wipe this super typhoon off the map." So it's good to see that people are at least turning in the right direction. But as I said before, we don't have to wait for disaster to come to do that.
No, we don't. I just wonder, when you look at the ferocity of that storm, you just have to wonder when you hear wind speeds 195 to 215 miles an hour. How incredible is that? If you've ever been caught in a windstorm where the speeds of the wind were, 80 miles an hour, 50, 60, 70, 80 miles an hour, it's ridiculous. And you've got 215, upwards of 200 miles an hour, 250 miles an hour. It's crazy. Joe, one thing I forgot about, and I meant to reference this earlier when I was talking about Iran and Saudi Arabia, the nuke deal there. Excuse me, I had to hit my cough button there. think back to the Benghazi situation. Think back to what was going on at the nation-state level with Benghazi and Russia and all of the questions we had. I remember, I think that this was one of our programs, we had discussed this back in October of last year. Valerie Jarrett's role in Iran, Valerie Jarrett's role in handling the Benghazi investigation. When I say handling, I'm talking about pushing certain things for the investigation in Benghazi. And you might say, well, what does Benghazi have to do with Iran sanctions and the nuke deal and all of this? Well, here's what I didn't mention, and I wanted to, and I'm going to go back and do this. Think back to right before Benghazi, or around that time of Benghazi. Valerie Jarrett, don't forget, had a meeting in Qatar, or Qatar, whatever, however you pronounce the name of that country. The Iranians were stringing Jarrett along, and they were working out some sort of agreement. They were stringing Jarrett along to be able to continue their nuclear weapon program while making it seem that they were standing down. The negotiations went through early October, and in the midst of all of this, we had a Benghazi investigation through the Accountability Review Board. Well, who headed up that Accountability Review Board that everyone is pointing to about Benghazi and saying, look, it's been investigated and everything's fine?
Is that like the 9/11 Commission or the Warren Commission?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the Federal Registry published, the little blurb. Well, Thomas Pickering would head the ARB, the ARB, as Hillary Rodham Clinton calls it. Thomas Pickering was the chosen one, and of course, Thomas Pickering was has all sorts of interests in Iran and Iranian interests, like Valerie Jarrett. Valerie Jarrett, of course, is Persian. She comes from Iran. So my questions, and I think everyone should question this, what really is going on here with respect to the arming of Saudi Arabia with nuclear warheads, and what's going on with Iran in the context with Israel. And
you remember just recently in the Syria conflict how Saudi Arabia, the Strange Bedfellows article, Saudi Arabia and Israel working together. So what would them acquiring weapons change in their relationship? Or was that just a situational, mutual beneficial?
Well, okay, yeah. We could talk about this the entire show, but I think what's important here is that the cover that was given, and there was this cover for Benghazi there was an agreed upon cover up by Thomas Pickering, I believe, as far as the investigation into the events in Benghazi. Now, don't forget Iranian interest in Benghazi. Don't forget, folks, that there were Iranian Red Crescent workers held from August 1st through October 5th of 2011 or 2012. That played part and parcel into this situation. I guess my point is this, without getting into it, and I'm looking at just an incredible amount of information. My point is this. What we're seeing is the buildup of Iranian, or we will see the buildup of Iranian nuclear warheads with a capable delivery system. This at the hands of John Kerry. But this also goes to the White House. When Joey had mentioned about this going back into for 5 months, them softening sanctions, meanwhile pressing sanctions against Israel, you've got this full court press against Israel via the ARB, via the review board that investigated Benghazi. How does Benghazi fit into all of this? How does Syria fit into all of this? Well, all of this is a realignment of power. And it's a realignment of power that goes back to the very early days of the Bush administration. So this is nothing new. And if you, on top of all of that, when you look at the hidden agenda, and it's good to go back into history and to look at the hidden agenda that, following 9/11, what did we do? Well, we invaded Afghanistan. We attacked in Afghanistan. But many Americans, most Americans, few knew, even on September 11th, despite what was going on there for the previous decade with Russia, that there was much worth exploiting in Afghanistan. But the Bush administration knew exactly what was worth exploiting in Afghanistan. So if we look at, so I guess what I'm trying to say is this. Look at the entire series of events from 9/11 forward as a continuing course of conduct by the New World Order, by the Illuminati-type people. Before the attacks, the Bush administration had supported the development of oil and gas pipelines across Afghanistan. They were connecting the landlocked Caspian riches, the Caspian Sea, with the very profitable Asian markets. Now, Afghanistan's significance from an energy standpoint stems from its geographical position as a potential transit route for oil and natural gas exports from Central Asia to the Arabian Sea. So, and I don't want to go too far down this road, but I think it's important to know history. The pipeline that was proposed had the personal backing of several senior Bush officials, and that had a hand in shaping the war strategy in Afghanistan. The people working for the oil companies that do business in the Caspian in favor of the export links across Afghanistan. One thing stood in the way at the time of September 11th, and that was the Taliban. And of course, the attacks were our attacks against the Taliban allowed us the opportunity to remove this oil transit impediment, thereby allowing this new life into this pipeline deal. Well, what are we seeing in Syria, for example, Joe? What's in part, why is Russia so adamant about Syria? It's about energy.
It's about their being supplied oil. It's their energy supply, as you say. It is also, I think, the continuation of our invasive and intrusive illegal foreign policy, our pro-interventionist policy. Russia's really drawing the line as they are running out of allies in the Middle East as we continue to overthrow those countries.
Right, and this is about oil. This is about energy. All of what we're seeing, the backdrop of all of this, is really about energy, the future, the ability to own the oil and energy in that region. Because don't forget, for example, Libya, the eastern part of Libya, really from Benghazi eastward, is a very oil-rich area. And also don't forget that during the first Gulf War, that many of Saudi oil wells were damaged by by the war, by the Iraqis. So they're looking, the Saudis in particular, are looking for oil, more oil, the wells with the inexpensive lift costs. So the Bush administration, back in the days right after, well, really even before 9/11, but the days afterwards, were setting this oil consortium up. And it's all about energy at this point. So and I think it's important for all of us to just to remember that when we look at whether it's Benghazi or we look at whatever incident there is in the Middle East, including Israel, we have to think in terms of energy, oil, and the future of both, or the future of energy that includes oil. And I just want to make sure that people understand that, because Israel too has recently found this huge, or discovered this huge natural gas deposit, and they will become a very big player, and they will have the spoils to take in a war, and they will suffer from sanctions by carry. So there are so many layers to this deception. I don't want to get too far down into this, but certainly don't look at this in an oversimplistic fashion, because there's so much to do about this. And I just wanted to go back and touch on that before I forgot. Folks, by the way, I just want to mention one thing here. American Survival Wholesale, and I've got to mention this, and I want to mention this frequently. AmericanSurvivalWholesale.com, one of our sponsors, a great sponsor, in celebration of Veterans Day. And of course, so this is a holiday weekend. 25% off of all orders over $100. Now think about that. 25% off of all orders over $100. That's American Survival Wholesale. It's an incredible sale. I guarantee you they're going to be losing money on this. I can't see how they wouldn't. However, here's what you need to know. In order to get the 25% off, in the area, when you check out, in the area where it says coupon code, and let me make sure I get this correctly here. Get this correct. In the area where it says coupon code, type in small letters, honor, the word honor, okay, space, above, space, all. So you're going to be typing in the phrase honor above all in the coupon code area, with a space between honor and above. So all in small letters, honor above all. Follow those directions, or no soup for you. It's a Seinfeld reference. No, you've got to do that, or else the 25% will not go into effect. It's honor above all, and that's in the coupon code in order to take advantage of the 25% off of American Survival Wholesale. I want to make sure everyone knows about that sale. Tremendous. And that goes to midnight Pacific time Sunday.
Very generous of American Survival Wholesale, and I want to thank them for all the fantastic promotions and people they help. They are such a blessing to this show, and we can't thank them enough for what they have done. I'm going to jump now to a audio on Fukushima titled Fukushima Beyond Tragic, It's a Crime. This is 3.5 minutes from RT, released today. Listen to what they had to say. This is pretty important.
Well, to discuss the field procedures as well as the safety situation around the Fukushima power plant, let's go live now to Kevin Cambridge, a nuclear waste specialist at the Beyond Nuclear Organization. Hi there, Kevin. Morning. According to experts, Reactor 4, this is the one that they're talking about taking the fuel rods out of, was so badly damaged in 2011, if there's another earthquake, it could collapse. So I guess they have to get these rods out, correct?
Yes, it's been a strange race against time that's taken 2.5 years now because they've had to rebuild the infrastructure of the Unit 4 building, which was so badly destroyed by the explosion. Now they're ready to go with infrastructure and a crane to lift these 100-ton loads of irradiated nuclear fuel assemblies out of the pool down to the ground to try to get them into a ground-level pool. And it's a very risky operation, as your reporter reported, because the fuel itself could be bent, it could be damaged, it could be corroded. They used salt water at one point to cool the nuclear waste in this pool, which could have corroded the assemblies. They could break apart, they could crumble when they go to try to remove them. Even the director of the Nuclear Regulation Authority of Japan has warned that this process should not be rushed. They should not try to force these assemblies out of their storage channels, but they have to get them out before a big earthquake takes the building down.
In short,
the cooling water is
that
drained
could
away.
happen,
the waste would then catch on fire.
In short, what's the worst that could happen?
There is no radiological containment around the pool, and if this waste were to catch on fire, it could be 10 times worse than Chernobyl. That's how much radioactivity is stored in that pool, just in terms of the radioactive cesium content.
Now, as we just heard from our correspondent, Alexei Rozhetsky says people are already resettling near Fukushima. I mean, how safe is it for them?
Well, it's a great tragedy that the Japanese government is allowing this to happen to within as close as 12.4 miles of the devastated nuclear power plant. Obviously, the landscape is contaminated, the food supply is contaminated. As your reporter said, it's up to individual private citizens to try to figure out how bad the contamination is. Environmental groups are trying to help them. So it's beyond tragic. It's a crime what's happening at Fukushima Daiichi.
The chief at the Fukushima plants called the process of removing these fuel rods the, quote, official start of the decommissioning. I guess that means that TEPCO is now in control of the situation, although judging by all the reports you hear, it doesn't sound like it, does it?
Well, there were petitions delivered today, signed by 150,000 people from around the world to the United Nations, calling on the United Nations to send the best and brightest scientists and engineers in the world to Fukushima Daiichi. It's absurd that Tokyo Electric is in charge of this globally significant extraction of the fuel from the pool. If something goes wrong, this could be a global catastrophe that dwarfs what has happened at Fukushima Daiichi thus far. Tokyo Electric has shown its true colors time and time again. It's incompetence, it's dishonesty. So it's very frightening that Tokyo Electric is in charge of this.
Yeah, really gloomy news to hear that. Kevin Camps, nuclear waste specialist, thanks for taking the time to come in the studio and talking to us. Appreciate it.
Folks, I was in contact with my source within the intelligence world, and dominating our conversations, or dominating what I listen to from him, he is telling me that this is the most serious, the absolute most serious event. We're not being told the truth about this. Now think about this. What's going to take place here is really a potentially apocalyptic scenario, or a scenario with apocalyptic consequences, coming up here in a matter of a few days. You're looking at the movement of these damaged, crumpled, twisted rods from reactor 4. Now, you're talking about upwards of, what they say, 1,300 rods, roughly, holding the radiation equivalent, and get this, of 14,000 Hiroshima bombs. Now, think about this. We're barely hearing word one here in the United States. One misstep, and it's almost a guarantee. You talk about this having the ability to succeed, and I'm not trying to put fear. I'm not trying to spread fear. This is just reality. It has a very minimal chance at succeeding. What could very well happen is you will have an incident that will spread additional radiation once again, the equivalent of 14,000 Hiroshima bombs from these spent fuel rod storage tank into the wind, into the waters, into the earth, and dead in line is the United States, specifically the west coast of the United States, western Canada, from Alaska to the equator. And what's even more disturbing is the fact that we are not hearing the truth. Why aren't we hearing the truth? Well, the government of Japan has signed into law, that's a state secret law that is crushing journalism in Japan, jail whistleblowers for as long as 10 years. The situation there is deteriorating, and it's only being reported in the alternative media. Japan, they're gagging their own press. They're shutting up their whistleblowers with threats of jail time. And they're trying to hide the absolute potential calamity, the apocalyptic scenario that could take place from the movement of these rods. And ladies and gentlemen, I cannot stress this enough. If you think about this, you could essentially have a situation where the entire west coast of this country will be filled with radioactive material. Now, I don't want the listeners on the west coast to start screaming in horror, because let's approach this calmly and rationally and understand what we're getting into here, what we're seeing. We first have to get proper information. We have to understand what we're dealing with, and then we have to act and react accordingly. We don't have to overreact, but we need to act and take steps accordingly. So let's
think of it like this, though.
Yes.
You have a white carpet, and you spill a glass of grape juice on it. 3 years later, you're figuring out how to get the grape juice out of the carpet by trying to remove these fuel rods. I mean, it seems like if you leave them there, you're putting everybody in danger. If you try to take them out, you're putting everybody in danger. There has been neglect to the point that it is beyond fixing, unless we took that part of Japan and Fukushima, dropped it in cement and then dropped it into the bottom of the ocean.
I'm not sure.
Cooling.
Well, first of all, I'm not sure that the analogy about the carpet grape.
No, I'm just saying you can't undo what's been done for 3 years.
Correct. We've lost a lot of time because the governments have not been, and TEPCO for sure, but the Japanese government and the American government and all the governments have been complicit in the cover-up here. But one thing that was drilled into me when I was talking with my source is the fact that this radiation is cumulative, and it's like, for example, talcum powder. Throw it up in the wind, and it blows. And I'm using just that as a visual example. Of course, the radiation you can't see, you can't feel necessarily, but what's going to take place is the radioactive soup, this stew of various radioactive particles, is going to be transported by the jet stream, and of course it's going to pollute, has polluted the waters in the Pacific. And it's wrong to think, well, geez, it can be diluted because of the volume in the Pacific. When you're talking about the 14,000 Hiroshima bombs, on top of whatever else has gone into the Pacific and into the air, the jet stream, you're talking about an accumulation of material, not only in the Pacific, but also here in the United States. And it's even worse than just on the West Coast, because the jet stream takes these particles and will take it in the air and drop it all across the Midwest, and even into our area. We're getting this radiation contamination, and it just takes one of those little bad bugger seeds there of radiation. Think of it like radon. You've heard the stories of houses having radon and causing cancer. It just takes one little radon particle in your lung lodged just right to create cancer. Well, multiply that by 1 million in terms of severity, and this is what we're facing. But let me throw one other example in, and this example does not belong to me. These are not my words, but the words of my source. You know how we've talked, Joe, about the intentional murder of the dollar, about killing the dollar, about an economic collapse? Well, think about this. Remember not too long ago where America decided not to, or said we can't import poultry from Asia because, or I believe it was from China, because of some sort of unspecified disease or bacteria. What would happen if, because of the radioactive fallout hitting the breadbasket of the United States, if our grain was said to be contaminated, true or not, hyped up or not, but we'll say Russia or China says, you know what, we're not going to buy any grain we can't buy grain from the United States because of its potential contamination. I would ask you, would that not be yet another possible way where the dollar could be assassinated as the world reserve currency? Could this not play? We've got to think about consider the unexpected, expect the unexpected. Could this not play into it? In addition to the real threat of the radiation, could this situation not be exploited? Might this not be exploited by other countries to further damage our currency? I submit it could. You've got to think. I think that we've got to think on multiple levels, on different levels. But at the same time, we cannot downplay the serious nature of this. The fuel rods, moving these fuel rods, is being left up to the longshoremen, this trade union over there, essentially the Japanese mob, if you will. It's not a good situation. And one misstep, like I said, you're looking at the equivalent of 14,000 Hiroshima bombs going off. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. Which is why media watchdogs in Japan, the real people reporting on the real readings, are being shut up through the state laws that recently passed, state secret laws that prohibit people from talking about the truth. So, in fact, Pastor Paul Begley had talked about this state secrets law. In fact, I'm just trying to remember here. This was reported by RT back on October 27th of this year. Japan's new state secrets law gags whistleblowers, raises press freedom fears. And this goes back to Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe speaking at a joint meeting by Nuclear Emergency Response Headquarters in TEPCO and the Nuclear Power Disaster Management Council in Tokyo. Now, again, you're looking at a situation where what once covered only issues of national defense now could be enforced on non-military leaks.
Yeah, this is crazy. I didn't see this story.
Oh, yeah.
Japan's new State Secrets Act stirs fears about press freedom and Fukushima transparency.
Yep, and there you have it. And under the bill, and think about how closely this mirrors Obama's regime, what he's doing. But under the bill, the administrative branch in Japan can set the range of information that is kept secret at its own discretion. So we've got a situation where the truth is being, not only are we not getting the truth, the truth is intentionally being kept from us. There is a distinction there, a difference, a distinction. That does center and focus on Fukushima. So, folks, I'm telling you, this is one of the worst ecological disasters. And meanwhile, and everyone here in the United States, Al Gore is yucking it up about the carbon credits or the carbon issue, the global warming issue, yet says nothing about the damage being caused by Fukushima. It's really incredible. What is happening here in Fukushima is
you can't set up a radiation cap and trade system.
Well, that should exactly, and you hit that right on the head. You've got to understand how serious this is. This is as serious as it gets for the population, because it's not like, as it was explained to me, it's not like, for example, this will kill you immediately. I suppose it could kill you quickly, given your position on Earth. We'll say in the West Coast or somewhere in the line of this radiation. But it's certainly going to create such an environment of death that we've got to understand the magnitude of this crisis. And once again, no one's talking about it. And they're rolling out these radiation meters that are calibrated improperly. So even when you hear, well, the radiation is still within accepted levels, they're using meters that are already designed to give you the improper data. So we cannot depend on the official locations or the official watchers to give proper radiation readings, because, well, what would it do? It would create such a chaos. It would create such a situation where, imagine trying to evacuate, for example, half of California or the population from Washington to San Diego, to relocate those people. And while your imagination is in full gear, if that were to be the case, how would that be accomplished? Would that be accomplished by getting the women and children out of the harm's way first? Would it separate families? Just think through the logistics of it for a moment. I don't have to go through the whole logistics outline for you. But think about this. And would it be that perhaps, China could walk in, Russia could walk in to assist in a humanitarian way? People talk about, Russia and China coming to the United States. Well, what would happen if they were invited in to assist in the evacuation and relocation of millions of people? And that's exactly how it would be, millions of people. Look, I'm not talking crazy talk here. We're talking about the most serious situation you could possibly have, and so little coverage of it, the unwillingness to cover it.
Ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this Friday edition, November 8th, 2013. It's been a tremendous week, went by so fast, and looking forward to next week. We will be joined on Monday by Mr. Russ Dizdar. You're not going to want to miss that. Also, we are going to Canton the following weekend from this weekend to attend his seminar. Go to his website and check out the seminar that he's holding. If you are close by or have the means to get there and go, I would strongly urge everybody to go, as it will be very informative and interesting. We're going to take some calls from here on out for the rest of the show while hitting news stories. And this, I'm going to hit this headline and move to a different story that we didn't really hit as I'm uploading some audio here. But first, the FAA is proposing widespread drones or civilian drone use in the U.S. airspace by 2015, and we knew this, that the government agencies had plans for, 40,000 drones in the sky?
Well, initially it was 30,000, but we know, Joe, that they're already flying. But here's the thing: they're armed. They are armed drones. Some of them are armed drones. That is, not all. And it's just a matter of time before one of the armed drones is used here in the United States, as Lindsey Graham had declared all of the United States, or the entire world, a battlefield, ostensibly against Al-Qaeda, while we, in fact, fund them. But the use of drones is, in fact, taking place right, as we speak. Yes.
This new plan that the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration presented, it set September 2015 as a deadline for integrating unmanned aerial vehicles into U.S. airspace, and 6 possible drone test sites will be selected out of 26 proposed by the end of 2013. The move has been continuously lobbied by trade group Aerospace Industries Association, which expects great demand for civilian use drones, including agricultural, firefighting, weather forecasting, and trafficking wildlife and humans. While the next 5 years, after the appropriation regulations are introduced, a whole 7,500 small UAVs will be operating in the U.S. airspace. FAA Michael Hireta said in an aerospace news conference in Washington on Thursday. Hireta outlined the ultimate goal of the American drone industry: global leadership that could enable the U.S. to set standards for the industry worldwide. We recognize that the expanding use of unmanned aerial aircraft presents great opportunities, but it also is true that integrating these aircraft present significant challenges. Reuters quoted Hireta as saying, he added that the U.S. aviation regulations and safety rules would remain a gold standard for the rest of the world to maintain our position of global leadership. But anyway, back to the drones. True beneficiaries of the drones used in America, as this article from RT lays out, it says, to move to use of drones widely inside of the U.S. has been long expected after the drones were introduced into the U.S. Army. Drones have some clear advantages over fixed surveillance cameras on lampposts and other locations, as they require the video streams from CCTVs to be processed. For instance, drones can always be focused on a desired object at the operator's will at any given time. Drones are not cost-effective mobile tools in America's vast low-rise suburbia. And it goes on to say that this is crucial that we move forward with the drone use. Of course it is. These procedural protections are followed by concrete restrictions on how data from drones can be used and how long it can be stored, said Christopher Calabrese, a legislative counsel for the American Civil Liberties Union. So more drones in the sky, more TSA checkpoints on the highways. We know where this is going. Now, this next story is something that we came across a while back, maybe a week ago, and did not get the attention that it deserves. I'm going to play an audio clip. The homeless people in certain states are disappearing because there have been laws implemented by these states, one being South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, to exile the homeless, giving them a choice to be put in a FEMA camp or going to jail. And in the FEMA camp, they can't just come and go as they please. They have to be shuttled and chaperoned. So what Charleston, South Carolina, or Columbia City Council unanimously approved a plan creating a special police patrol to enforce quality of life laws involving loitering, public urination, and other crimes not necessarily restricted to the homeless population. These officers would offer the homeless a choice: go to jail for their homelessness or be shuttled to a 24-hour shelter on the outskirts of town, which they would not be allowed to leave easily. It says the second option isn't jail, mind you, because the homeless are being confined with the help of a local charitable organization. It's charitable incarceration. The homeless can leave, but they need to set up an appointment and be shuttled by a van.
Well, one thing I think that it's important to understand is what's going on here. There is this culling of the herd mentality. The framework is being set up, and this is part and parcel to the framework. And we admittedly we kind of glossed over this, but once you understand that, once you understand the framework, once you understand the framework, you can see what's taking place.
If they can make it illegal for people to just be, whether they have a home or not, it doesn't matter if you have a home. If they can take homeless people and forcibly move them into their desirable areas, they can do it to people with homes too.
Of course. And before you play that, I'm gonna give this one statement, and this is a statement that again comes from my friend who's within the intelligence community. Think about this as you listen to the remainder of the program. Evil is illogical at its core. There's really no explanation. But hell is a place where reason does not exist. Just think about that as you listen to this and other stories throughout the program. Go ahead with the homeless clip, Joe.
And reason is the not the thing that people need to worry about existing. From what I understand and have researched, there is none of the attributes of God there. You have no strength. You have no feeling of nothing positive ever. It would just be it would be like being tortured for eternity.
Right.
Times 20.
But in the context of this program, it's the absence of logic and reason. But okay, go ahead.
All right, this is a 1-minute clip. South Carolina City Council bans homeless people.
The City Council in Columbia, South Carolina, voted unanimously to ban all homeless people from its downtown business area. Violators will be jailed, but those who wish to comply can stay at a shelter just outside the city limits. The catch is that they have to be among the first 240 to get there and are not permitted to leave the grounds by any means other than the official shuttle booked by appointment. It's estimated that Columbia has over 1,500 homeless citizens. Police have been assigned to patrol both the restricted city region and the road near the shelter to make sure no homeless people are meandering around either. Should the officers not catch all of the individuals violating the new plan, business owners and residents are encouraged to call the new hotline set up by the city. According to the councilman who proposed the plan, the removal of several benches throughout the city is another measure being taken to ensure the homeless don't make themselves comfortable. South Carolina's ACLU legal director is looking into the situation and said that giving the limited options of being jailed or shuttled out of town is an abuse of power.
That is one clip from South Carolina City. Here is another one from another location.
New at 11, the city of Fresno is gearing up to clear out another homeless encampment.
It takes place next Wednesday. It will be the fourth cleanup in 2 months. It's located along Highway 180 and 99 near Thorne Avenue in Divisadero. CBS 47's Tony Botti takes a closer look.
This next cleanup effort is likely going to be the biggest challenge for the city, and that's because it's so spread out. You can see we have an encampment here that lines Producers Dairy. And then if I walk across the railroad tracks and you take a look off into the distance, you can see a whole nother encampment has been set up. 3 or 4 dozen people have claimed this large chunk of private property situated just north of Highway 180. They call it home, but Fresno City Manager Bruce Rudd calls it a dump.
We have health and safety issues. Considering it's next to a irrigation canal, there's a lot of illegal dumping, a lot of trash, a lot of paraphernalia, drug paraphernalia.
Following a court order, the city has posted notices alerting folks they have until Wednesday to clear out.
And that whole audio clip obviously is not going to comply with me, but here is Fresno, Sacramento. This is happening across cities across the United States. Remember last year, places like Orlando, Philadelphia, they started making it illegal to feed the homeless people. They started putting people in jail who would have free meal giveaways, during the weekends, something that they would do for a long time. And now they are getting rid of having to feed the homeless people or having people come down to the areas where they gather to feed them by putting them in camps where they are not permitted to leave. It's one thing to say we're going to make shelters for you, we're going to help you try to get back on your feet, but to say you can go to jail or you can go to a shelter, that's funded by some sort of quote-unquote philanthropist organization, but you can't leave, and if you do leave, it needs to be by appointment, and you're going to need to be chaperoned by our shuttle bus. It is without saying, FEMA camp or all the connotations that brings, it is a detention camp. If you don't have the freedom to come and go as you please, and you have done nothing more than just be alive and exist in the freest country in the world, it's scary because I don't see it as homeless people. I see it as people because they don't draw distinctions between homeless. Think back to Nazi Germany. What did they start doing? They started with the death panels and the old people and the disabled and the homeless. They started getting rid of those people. It's the same mentality, the same kind of culture being introduced here. It is a sick, disgusting way of thinking, and they are moving forward with this in all parts of the country, and call them FEMA camps, call them homeless detention centers, but just the way that some of these news reports are worded. Final homeless camp cleanup scheduled. South Carolina bans homeless people. It's insane. What's next? Are you going to ban people with hair? Are you going to ban, pilots? You're talking about human beings, whether they're homeless or not, whether they're rich or poor.
Yeah,
they're humans, and they have just as much a right to exist. And if they're, it's one thing to take a homeless person from a building entranceway in the evening and move him to a park. It's another thing to take him, his ability to exist and be self-sufficient on the streets and move him to a prison.
But really, what's the bottom line? What's this all about? I mean, if
it is
seriously
about it's
a calling of the herd.
Police state culture, the eugenics. Yes, exactly. Like I said, with the example of Hitler, and where they started to take away people, and what they started to do to the disabled people, the people that they deemed unfit to serve the state. This is not America anymore. This is a depopulation Nazi plan.
Well,
and it's coming to a town, or it's already in a town near you.
It's interesting. Kind of. I don't want to say this is related, but it's in the same genre. I don't know whether you saw this or not, but the Declaration on the Role of Religion in the Promotion of a Culture of Peace, it kind of does fit well with our treatment of people here in the United States. But there was a recent UN declaration on tolerance as a tool for transformation. And this is brought on by UNESCO, or brought to you by UNESCO. And again, it's Declaration on the Role of Religion in the Promotion of a Culture of Peace. Well, some excerpts here. Excuse me, I had to again press the cough button. We live in a world in which isolation is no longer possible. We are all interdependent and share an inescapable responsibility for the well-being of the entire world. We face a crisis which could bring about the suicide of the human species, or bring us a new awakening and a new hope. We know that religion has an indispensable role to play. Neither the meaning of peace nor religion can be reduced to a single or rigid concept. Religions have led to division, hatred, and war. Religious people have too often betrayed the high ideals they themselves have preached. We call for sincere acts of repentance, mutual forgiveness, both personally and collectively, to one another, to humanity in general and to Mother Earth and all living beings.
Mother Earth?
Yes. Now, see, yeah, okay, what's taking, and the reason I want to piggyback that off of the homeless story is, look at what they're. I see this as part and parcel to the same agenda here. If you look at what we're doing with the homeless now, you've got the United Nations part dealing with the entirety of humanity, not just here in the United States, homeless or not. But what we're looking at is this division. Blaming religion for the division, blaming your faith for division, and what are we doing with the people, Joe? What are we doing with the people? We're painting them as specific targets. The DHS is doing this. FEMA is doing this. You mentioned FEMA camps. This is all part of culling the herd. Not only are the homeless the targets of our FEMA actions, but so are the people who are religious or who have faith, because they are the ones who are causing the divisiveness here. So now we've got all of these different elements of the population that are being culled. And again, this is a great culling of the herd. But now it's not only just the United States issue, it's the United States being subjugated to a UN, the umbrella of the United Nations through UNESCO, Declaration on the Role of Religion, in how we are classifying individuals and how we're classifying the collectives. I don't know if that made sense, but to me, I thought that was a pretty big deal when I heard it.
I didn't even know if you were speaking English. No, it did make sense. And it is a surreal reality to see the state of this country, to see how we went from a system of government that not only protected but promoted the freedoms of individuals to the extent we who are alive today have never seen. Now everything is done for the sake of the government, and it is the opposite of the way it should be. We're going to go to the phone lines now as we have people on hold, and we appreciate your guys' patience. Give us a call at 661-244-9839. We're going to go to area code 503 first. Thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi, Doug. Talking about Fukushima.
Yes.
About a year and a half ago, I was at work doing an observation on another employee, and I was standing there, and all of a sudden this hot metallic taste hit my mouth, and it almost took my breath away. And my foreman was standing there, and I said, I don't know, but something just happened. And then after listening to Arnie Gunderson, it was probably a hot particle from Fukushima. And, you know, you were talking about you can't taste it. Well, what happened after that, the very next day, was like my whole immune system had shut down and came down with this flu-like cold symptom that just was horrible. So that's definitely something to be aware of.
Well, and I think that Fukushima is the most underreported huge story of our lifetime. I mean, this is the most absolutely critical event. You cannot get more serious than Fukushima. Now, are you on the West Coast or?
Yeah, I live in Oregon.
Okay, all right.
Right there on the West Coast, you know, and we keep hearing of these reports of all these starfish that are dying. They just had a news report, I think it was like last week, where there was a bunch of scuba divers up in Washington, some professionals that were up there, and they were checking out these sea stars, and they're all melting and dying, and they're saying, well, we don't really know what's causing this. Well, it doesn't take much to figure out that it's got to be from the radiation.
Well, and I've heard that story, the melting part, which really makes one wonder. Of course, and caller, think about this. I mean, think about the effects that this is going to have on the fishing industry, and of course, once this gets into the food chain, the radiation, and it's already into the food chain. how this will just continue to snowball. And this is, this is one. If this is the worst ecological disaster in the history of man, I believe, since the Garden of Eden, and yet we're not hearing the truth about this. This has the capacity to take 20 years off of our life expectancy. If you've got children or grandchildren, look at them. This is what we're leaving them. We're leaving them with this death, really, this silent death. It's unacceptable. We need to do something about it. We need to heighten the awareness about it. And every country in the world should be responding to Fukushima in an attempt to do something, clean it up, stop it, mitigate the damages. Yeah, even now, 2 years after the event, or whatever, it doesn't matter. Let's do something about it. But that's interesting. And you were sick from that metallic taste, or whatever.
Yeah, it was like just all of a sudden this hot metallic taste, and it was like I didn't know what it was. And then after listening to Gunderson, and he was saying that a lot of people, especially down in California area, they would be inhaling like 5 to 6 of these, hot particles. And then there was a report last week up in Washington that a couple children had died from some heart complications, and they were kind of wondering if it wasn't from the cesium. Because you hear the Japanese children that are dying from the heart complications. And so...
Wow.
And then on Facebook, they have that lady called, she goes by Rad Chick. I don't know if you've ever heard of her.
Yep.
But she might be somebody that you'd want to interview because she's got a lot of good information.
Okay. That sounds good. But let me ask you this. Outside of the alternative media, are you hearing much or reading much about the severity of this crisis in the mainstream, corporate, lamestream media?
Nothing at all. Just from, the sea stars that are melting, but then you hear it on the news and they're throwing up their hands going, well, we have no clue why this is happening. But...
Exactly. It's so obvious that they'll have the animal die-offs in areas affected. They'll have, it's not even that they don't even get the reason. And when they're not even doing the simple task of what I would call their human duty to inform and warn the people that there is a higher level of radiation being taken in by the people in the U.S. and giving people ideas to mitigate and protect themselves against it.
Remember when it first happened and the government was buying up all the iodine pills for the military? I don't know if you remember that report. Yeah, that was just another thing that kind of got my attention. But there's one thing your listeners need to know, especially if they're living on the West Coast. If you're up cleaning out your gutters, you need to be wearing a mask, or if you're cleaning out your furnace filter, because that stuff will collect in your gutters and your furnace filters. So make sure you wear protection if you're doing any of that cleaning. Because I made the mistake of getting up on my gutter and cleaning them out, and for 3 months I had this white film on my tongue that I went to the doctor a couple times. They had no clue to what it was, but then after I started thinking, well, I didn't wear a mask. With all the chemtrails and everything else that they're spraying us with, and that stuff settles down and lands in your gutters, well, it's just bad news.
Absolutely. And it's deadly.
Fantastic information.
We could all be sick and dying in the next 3 to 5 years. And I know it right now, based on how much. This has been leaking for over 2.5 years, and the government, the media, all of them have been silent. If anything, when they report on it, they try to explain it away, saying the ocean absorbs all the radiation and it doesn't have any harmful effects here. At the same time, they raise the minimum level of ingestible or exposure to radiation levels, and they've done that a bunch of times. But they're saying completely different when they talk about it.
You know, caller, you mentioned about. Oh, that's nice. I don't know if you can hear that. Can you hear that?
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit.
Whoops, sorry about that. It was me. I just overlaid some audio shouldn't be. But Arnie Gunnarsson and physician Helen Kidicott had said. I mean, you mentioned Arnie Gunnarsson, the nuclear. He said that along with the Dr. Kidicott said that people should evacuate the northern hemisphere if one of the fuel collapsed. So, wow, that's all I can tell you. This is an issue for human survival in the northern hemisphere, and that makes me, caller, that makes me wonder. You hear about people like the Bush families, or the Bushes and Soros moving to the southern hemisphere, moving their operations and their homes to the southern hemisphere. What do they know that we don't know?
Oh, they know it all, I'm sure. And there was another show I was listening to about a year ago, and the show's host had made comment that there was a guy that had a vision about 30 years ago, and he's already passed away, and I didn't write the guy's name down, but he said he had a vision 30 years ago that there was going to be this black cloud coming down from Alaska and coming down over the northwest, and it was going to pollute us. And I'm kind of wondering if that vision wasn't the black cloud of death from radiation from Fukushima.
Wow. Interesting. Caller, you're breaking up for some reason. We're going to cut you loose. I want to thank you very much for the call. Interesting call. Interesting information. Wow. I'm getting a lot of static and a lot of wind noise in my... There we go.
Yeah. Okay. That was the radiation blowing into the mouthpiece.
And I know I should keep my fingers off these certain buttons and knobs, but the colors are so pretty. Never mind. All right. Sorry. Look, this operation that's about to take place at the Reactor 4 is just fraught with all sorts of danger.
Now, did you see? Do you remember? I don't know how long ago, maybe 6 months ago, when they tore down the exterior of the number 4 plant with a crane? And they had that crane in there just knocking all the stuff everywhere, the cement.
Yep.
That kind of, I thought something bad was going to happen then. But, no, there'll be a few things. If the ocean starts boiling, if there's another explosion, if reactors show up on the opposite side of the Earth from where they went down into the Earth or reportedly went down into the Earth, it's not going to be, I mean, when this thing reaches full disaster mode, which it will eventually, if the information I noted is accurate, it would be horrible. I mean, it would be the worst case scenario. If it seemed like it is already, it is, like you said, one of the disasters in our lifetime.
One thing that strikes and I would urge everyone to search this out on the internet. The University of Hawaii's International Pacific Research Council, or Research Center. I'll say that again. I don't have the link handy, but it's the University of Hawaii International Pacific Research Center. They created a graphic showing the projected dispersion of debris from Japan, and at least for, I believe it was for the first year after the earthquake, and to see this mass of radioactive material, both airborne and waterborne. Now, this is not the NOAA map, okay? This is actually from this International Pacific Research Center of Hawaii. It's an amazing graphic, and it's an animated graphic. But again, you cannot, and I say this with passion, you cannot believe what you are being told by media about the severity of this. The best case scenario leaves us in a very precarious position,
there's
especially in America.
Because the damage has already been done to a large extent.
Well, think about this real quick. You've got TEPCO, who's really behind. I mean, they don't know how to stop the leaks. You've got scientists; they've got no idea real right now where the cores of nuclear reactors really are. In the first place, are supervising or being what's about to take place that could cause a much bigger problem. And this is the greatest threat to humanity, including and especially those of us here in the United States. And again, you're talking about a situation where if it would happen with the movement of these rods, because these rods were damaged and they're crunched and crinkled and twisted, and you drop one, mishandle one, and you could have just a huge explosion. So if one of the pools collapsed or caught fire, you would have essentially the entire northern hemisphere placed in a position of danger. The radiation caused by the failure of the spent fuel pools in the event of another incident, whether it be man-made by attempting to move it or even an earthquake, the radiation could, in fact, reach the West Coast within 3 days, depending on the jet stream and the weather patterns. But the contamination that we face, especially on the West Coast, is off the charts, and it lies at every level.
Well, see, contamination is a loaded word. Walter, she has her opinions that the people in Japan should have been thankful for the radiation. It's healthy. We don't have to be so negative about it, do we? I mean,
it's amazing. Yeah, paging Greg Jackson.
Whatever happened to the Fukushima 50? Are any of them still alive? Remember the people who went in there right after the disaster to do who knows what?
I don't know the answer to
that. That's something I'm going to write down so I can look into that. But yeah, I mean, just to think we have all this social, political, and economic chaos going on, all this spiritual wickedness going on, the dark influences taking over the governments, the people, the dark influences, the satanic influences manipulating and brainwashing and souls of so many people who are not, the Fukushima radiation is like spiritual warfare. Most of the people who believe in God ignore that because they don't see it or they don't deal with it. So it's sight out of mind. And we have this Fukushima radiation disaster going on. Just like the Bible says. And last night you talked about this with the Civil War with the unrest here. Imagine saying we're cutting off all security, disability, food stamps, and we're taking the police away tomorrow. Have a good life. The chaos that would cause, I said people would be eating people in the streets within 72 hours, and it would be so bad that even many who believed in God would let that go for some semblance of order and normalcy again.
Mm.
And we're getting reports that our sound is breaking up, and unless you are sitting or pushing a button, I don't see any problems. So I don't know what's going on.
No, I'm not allowed to touch anything.
You will do.
Clearly defined, made clear by the duct taping of my arms to my chair. Perhaps it's the real talk of Fukushima. And folks can attempt to salvage the audio by going to the HagmannReport.com. That's the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. Spell it all out, 2 N's on Hagmann. For the Christians United Broadcasting Network as an alternative to BTR, if we are having sound problems related only to BTR. But just very quickly as well, TEPCO, very bad track record. Look, engineers warned TEPCO and the Japanese government many years before the accident that the reactors were unsafe, that they were prone to damage from an earthquake or some type of external event. The reactors themselves were fatally damaged before the tsunami hit. The earthquake took them out even before the tidal wave hit. An official Japanese government investigation concluded that Fukushima accident was a man-made disaster. Now, parse that thought. That has some interesting connotations to it. Then figure that there was collusion between the government and TEPCO, especially with respect to the poor design of the reactor in the first place. And TEPCO knew right after the 2011 accident, or right after that 2011 incident, I'll call it, that 3 of the reactors had lost containment, that the nuclear fuel had gone missing, and there was, in fact, no real containment at all. Now, they've been supposedly trying to cover this. Well, no, they've been covering this up for the last 2.5 years, 3 years almost, pretending that the reactors were, in fact, in cold shutdown. Again, folks, none of the information we're getting is true. Massive amounts of radioactive water has been leaking into the groundwater and the Pacific Ocean. There's no financial incentive from on the part of TEPCO to fix anything. And you know what? If we look at it and be really honest, it would appear that TEPCO has just merely been pretending to clean it up. Their attempts to solidify the ground under the reactors using chemicals backfired horribly. Folks, again, it was explained to me, again, by my friend and my source, what is about to take place if you take a pack of cigarettes and crumple them up. Imagine trying to extract the cigarettes from the crumpled pack of cigarettes in one piece without breaking them or without dropping them. That's the best mental picture I was giving and I can give you. So that's where we're at with this. Folks, this is a horrible, horrible, horrible situation that we're not getting the truth about.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I want to say on a lighter note, but this story, remember yesterday we talked about the father who was tasered for trying to save his stepson from a burning house. And
yeah, we should clear some things up. Yeah,
I have a different report here. A New York dad has been deemed unfit by a judge in a court, for not taking his son to McDonald's. The Manhattan dad is not loving it tonight. Attorney David Scorer slapped a court-appointed shrink with a defamation lawsuit for telling the judge deciding a custody battle with his estranged wife that he was an unfit parent for refusing to take his son to the fast food joint for dinner. You'd think it was sexual molestation, the father said. I'm just floored by the decision. Scorer says the Manhattan Supreme Court suit that East 97th Street psychiatrist Marilyn Schiller filed a report saying he was wholly incapable of taking care of his son and should be denied his weekend visitations over the greasy burger ban. I mean, this is just if I was that man, I can't even say that. You're going to take a judge. I mean, where is the common sense? Where is how can you're talking about taking away somebody's right to see or take care of their child over telling them no.
Well,
it's not like the guy had him in a closet starving for a week.
And folks, one of the reasons why we talk about stories like this is because it's frivolous, of course, on its face.
Shows
Well, but
it shows the craziness of our society. It shows the lack of any godlike principles, God-ordained principles or teachings of how we need to live and treat each other and act and understand things. It shows a complete disconnect from reality.
But this is something as well that Professor Carol Quigley had written about in part in that 1,338-page tome, the book I've got right here, Tragedy and Hope, about being actually very happy about the takeover of our judiciary and about how the assaults on our society, and this being one of them, or an example of one of them, how these things are. You've got this crazed movement to assail, to really stomp on our judiciary and the people making decisions, and that includes these professional psychiatrists, these professional people who consult with the judges, psychiatrists. This is another area too that we're looking at. So this is planned. We might have a chuckle over this, or some people might say, shake their head and say, wow, this is really off the wall. But it's planned to be this distressing and this unbelievable. And this is all part of it. By the way, I want to mention this.
Yes, I'm not grabbing these headlines for shock value. It is actually because, I mean, it shocks me when I read them initially, and I feel that it's important to share these, just like it's important to play certain audio clips from some of the media outlets out there, because it shows the mental state of our society. We have so many parents out there that are abusing their kids, that are neglecting their kids, that will never see a judge.
That's right.
And this kid couldn't get his McDonald's one day, and now his dad has been deemed unfit. It reminds me, what was it, a couple of years back when they started getting on parents about spanking, trying to say, you can't spank your kids. When I have kids, I'm going to beat the crap out of them if they're anything like me. As I mean, not beat the crap out of them, but
you're going to be.
I got a smack if I deserved it.
Yeah,
from you, from my mom, from my grandma, and it helped me. It wasn't, vicious or malicious.
We didn't beat you.
No,
but we certainly, gave you a crack if you needed one, and but it was done with. But see, there's a difference between doing it with love and concern versus doing it out of hatred and anger. Okay.
I remember one time it was out of anger, but I did something we were out of town at a hotel, and you thought I ran away. I was just sitting behind a vending machine, and when you came, you found me. You cracked me in the stomach pretty good. With the closed fist punch, and I deserved it though, because I was gone for like an hour, and I don't even remember where we were out of town. But it was like I ran away. He thought I ran away.
Yeah, I was out of my mind. I didn't know if you ran away or if somebody grabbed you.
Right.
You were young enough. Well, you weren't that young. I'm not so sure about the closed fist.
I definitely deserved it. No, you gave me a good gut shot. I deserved it.
Okay, because I remember, when you finally emerged
that's better
from the back of a vending machine.
I'd rather get a gut punch than one of those my grandma with the wooden spoons, any day. So,
but I'll tell you what, we as a family looked for him, folks. You got to understand, he was just a monster. No, I shouldn't say that. A challenging young man. But in a hotel in a city far from home, and decides to, quote, run away, and actually hides behind a vending machine. And he's gone for, as I recall, close to an hour and a half. And you had everyone looking for you.
It was kind of interesting because the vending machine was right across the hall from the room, the hotel room. It led to another hallway. I was no more than 10 feet away from the room at all times, but that was, thinking back on it, how messed up it was for me to do that. And I couldn't even tell you why I was angry or what the thing was about. But to think of it from a parent's perspective, I would have done a lot more than slap me in the stomach.
Yeah, it was but see, here we are today with parents who are selling their children for sex, and I mean everything is upside down and backwards. I am not for beating children, but I am for discipline, and I am for 100% behind the parents who are raising their children to be young men and polite men and young adults. Yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, that type of thing. Giving others the respect and raising them to be honest. And now I'm going to get probably 50 emails saying, you gut punched them? What are you, some sort of child?
I seriously, if anybody has a problem with that, that's really, I deserved a lot more than that. I mean, it wasn't like you wound up and hit me. You just shocked me and kind of
going after. In fact, I was trying to bite. If I remember correctly, I was trying to yank you out from underneath because you kind of went to the side and said, "Hey, surprise." It was more like a surprise kind of thing, and I went to grab you and yank you right through the vending machine.
Yeah, what people call abuse today, I would call good parenting in some cases, but.
And folks, you wonder why I am the way I am today. Holy cow!
Yeah, Grandma used to say her gray hairs never appeared until I came around,
and that's true. All right. But speaking of weird things and the way people raise families, I don't know whether you saw this. Again, this goes to the state of the world. Missouri, they want to ban Nerf guns.
Forget Nerf. It's a gun.
Well,
it's a gun. It's an unregistered, like the unregistered ammo in D.C., like the kids playing with the toy guns in the front yard who got suspended from school or expelled from school. Like the kids who were arrested for bringing or making hand gestures of a gun. If you wear a T-shirt that says the words or has the letters G, U, and N on it in the same side of the shirt, police escort you out. That's part of the course today.
It's ridiculous. Missouri.
Missouri. Wow.
Yeah. In fact, these toy Nerf guns. The backstory is that these toy Nerf guns are the weapons of choice for children participating, or students, I should say, not children, participating in the Missouri State University's semi-annual Humans versus Zombies live-action game. Without going into what's wrong with that sentence, the issue about the irrational anti-gun hysteria at all American schools. Folks, think about this. I mean, think about that the hysteria behind the guns. Of course, and few people are talking about this, how ridiculous this is. A toy Nerf gun? You can't have those?
No, you can't, because you can't look at it as a toy Nerf gun. You have to look at it as an indoctrination into gun violence. You are taking a something that resembles a gun, and it has a projectile that shoots. Regardless if you don't feel it or it doesn't hurt when you get hit with it, it is still the same. It's like playing cowboys and Indians today. It's like saying the Redskins, there's nothing wrong with the Redskins name. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I mean, I know.
It's like the story we just talked about the dad. This is how warped-minded our society is. And it's so disheartening and sad, yet frustrating. But all we can do is try to point people in the right direction. Now, one quick headline here: Evangelist was found guilty of trespassing for preaching at a public train station in West Windsor, New Jersey.
This is going to be happening more and more.
Yeah,
absolutely. Go ahead.
When we started the show when we did it on Saturdays, we interviewed a pastor named Rick. oh goodness, Rick, I can't remember his last name. I think he was in Texas, handing out literature, Bible literature that was in pamphlets on the sidewalk outside of the DMV. And he was arrested. We know that in California there was a man who was put in jail for holding a small Bible study group in his house. They said he needed a permit or needed to declare his building as a church. They're pulling out all the stops. The Army, the Navy, the government as a whole are coming after the Bible. And the Missouri preacher or the Missouri bus driver who was fired for praying with children we talked about yesterday. It seems every week there is a handful of these stories. Here, Breitbart, CNN blames Christians for Obamacare problems. CNN has blamed Christians for the problems of Americans without health insurance, calling it the Obamacare scandal you have not heard about. In an article on CNN.com's brief blog, writer John Blake says that while famous pastors preach in states where crosses and church steeples dot the skyline, they do nothing about the poor who can't get the health insurance they would receive if they lived somewhere else. Now, there is some truth to what he's saying in the respect we have these mega pastors, and people in the chat room were talking about this yesterday, like rich pastors. If you're a pastor, you should never be rich, because that money should be going to help your flock, the people in need, whoever it is, whatever you can do, whether it's children, whether it's...
wait a minute. Are you saying that...
I'm not saying you can't be comfortable. I'm saying you have these pastors, these mega pastors making, tens of millions of dollars. You should not have a rich pastor. Pastors, if they are making that much money, use whatever money you need to live, and live not... Like, you don't have to live in the slums, but you don't have to have a mansion. But if you have what you need to survive and survive comfortably, anything beyond that, as a pastor should go to help people, should go to expanding ministries in your church for outreach. I
heard
charities.
Look, I heard Glenn Beck talking about this probably a week ago, and to me, when you say rich pastor, okay, I believe that you should live up to the means, to a reasonable, comfortable means.
Well, people would but have a big variety of difference of opinion of what comfortable is. I say if you have a roof over your head, you have enough money to pay your bills every month, not that you have a black American Express card with a $300,000 limit, but
no, but if you can have yourself in the mirror,
right,
and if you can be held up to complete transparency to the people of your congregation, then I don't see a problem.
But what's worse is these mega pastors. Not only are they, I'm not attacking them because of their making or bringing in money,
right,
but what is worse is that they call themselves pastors and they are changing the words of God.
Yeah, it's the use of the money. When you people living in a 20,000 square foot mansion, okay,
and promoting that being rich is something.
Yeah, I've got a problem
godly.
with that, with the seeding principle. In other words, a lot of pastors will come on. In fact, I happened to catch something the other night. It was like 3 a.m. I was trying to chill out, and I was looking at some television. I saw it was on a Christian TV channel, and to be honest with you, I don't even know who the pastor was, but he was saying, look, if you could be rich beyond your wildest imagination, and I'm talking materially rich, and by doing certain things. And boasting, as a matter of fact, of his lifestyle. At that point, that becomes, to me, a sin. And certainly, you could use that money to help others. I know Pastor Bruce York. When I went down to see Pastor Bruce York, I would say he would be like the gold standard of pastors. He had such a huge operation.
Millions a year in food to.
Look, all
people
I know,
in need or supplies to people in need. I mean, that's what a pastor should be doing. They should be That's what, not just pastors, though. Anybody who's in a position, the Bible says, to whom much is given, much is required.
Right.
And it doesn't mean, required that you have to live a certain way. It means required that you're going to be held accountable for, if you could have done something to better someone's life and you chose not to because of selfish wants or lust, you're going to be accountable for that.
Exactly. And as we just kind of sit around the dining room table or kitchen table here on this Friday evening, the 8th day of November 2013, kind of chilling out after a pretty rough, pretty rambunctious week, a great week that is. In fact, we had a great 2 weeks, but kind of just decompressing, talking about issues that vary in nature, from the extremely serious, Fukushima, to the somewhat silly, the Nerf gun ban, and everything in between.
And we haven't even got to the topic of the month, the Obamacare stuff that came out today. Tens of millions more are now being forced out of the health insurance that they had. But this is, we know this is going to happen. I have actually a very good article on what we talked about, how this website debacle, the whole purpose of this rollout was never what they intended it to be. The article here actually talks about the true nature and agenda and goals of Obamacare rollout, and it is for basically what they say here is to have a universal single-payer collectivist system.
It's the capturing of 1/6 of our economy, the destruction of the private insurance, and the consolidation and centralization of information for the architecture for the mark of the beast.
And removing the healthcare, all of the healthcare business out of the free market sector.
Right.
Which is 1/6 of the free market system.
Exactly.
And think about everything else that's been removed, from the hours people work being cut down to the jobs that have been shipped all across the world due to NAFTA and, GATT and the other internationalism and globalism policies that are being implemented pretty much on a daily basis. Folks, we're up against the top of the hour break. We will be right back.
Final hour of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me is Joe Hagmann. Together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, one of the fastest growing internet news information shows out there. A couple of announcements. I want to say this. Number one, I spoke with our internet service provider, NitroHost. God bless NitroHost. The migration to that server is complete, with the exception of our email. You may have trouble. You might encounter trouble sending us an email over the next several hours. If that's the case, don't worry about it. We know about it. It's being repaired. Second announcement, Monday, Russ Dizdar appearing in advance of the conference next Friday and Saturday. Folks, we are going to be at the conference next Friday and Saturday. That is going to be Occult Satanic Crimes Conference in Canton, Ohio. We'll be there. We'll be broadcasting from Canton, I believe, if the planets line up right, on November 15th. The speakers, of course, Dr. Dale Griffiths, Dr. Carl Raschke, Russ Dizdar, and others. It's going to be a great time. Schedule: Friday 1 to 5:30 and 7 to 9. Saturday 9:30 to noon 30, and 1:30 to 5:30, and then again 7 to 9. The cost right now is $170 for couples, $110 per person. You can register by PayPal, and I do know that after November 10th, the price will go up because of the issues related to the logistics of filling the spots. And of course, if you want to stay, you can book your own room at the Marriott Courtyard in Canton. You can find all of this out. You can if you simply go to Russ's website, shatterthedarkness.net. That's shatterthedarkness.net. They're right below the announcement of Russ being on our show. on Monday is registered now, just 8 days away, called Satanic Crimes Conference. It's going to be a major, just a major enlightenment about the satanic crimes. Also Tuesday, Standale. Wednesday, let me just double check this here. Stand by. See how what pros we are.
What do you do all day that you do not have everything organized?
I do.
No, I'm kidding.
I do. It's just.
I say that he's probably brain cells are frying in his head. All the phone calls he takes on a daily basis. No, it gets hectic around here.
Wednesday, right? Full spectrum survival guys talking about certain elements of preparation, things that you need to know. 9 to 10, or for the second 2 hours on Wednesday. Or I'm sorry, yes, Wednesday. That'll be Wednesday. And Thursday we're going to be on their show. We're working some things out too to bring the 2-minute or the news. That they've got a very special method of grabbing what is trending and what's important. And we've reviewed so many news outlets, from the IRN USA Radio News Network to others. By far, Full Spectrum Survival has the news in 2 minutes. They address, and we've watched this now for about a month. Well, since they were on our show last, they've got tremendous news, and they're always ahead by at least 48 hours of what you will read in the newspaper, or I'm sorry, what you'll see on television if you watch TV, or even what you'll see on Drudge. They're ahead by about anywhere between 24 to 36 hours, sometimes 48 hours. That's from our own research. So we're negotiating with them to bring on the 2-minute news blurb at the top of the hours on our show. I want to announce that, as well as there was one other thing too. I think that'll. Oh, yeah, that'll cover it, Joe. Let's go to calls. I don't want to take the time up any more from our listeners. Are you there? No,
yes, you caught me in the middle of multitasking. I apologize. I'm going
What do you do all the show, huh?
I sit here and do as little as possible.
You've got to see the way our studio is set up.
Yeah, we're going to be doing video again soon because we have it all set up for that.
And I can't see you over your screen. You can barely see me over mine.
Yeah, we have our desks facing each other, and I shouldn't say we. My dad has rearranged the studio only 153 times in the last 6 months. But that always looks good when you do it. So.
Well, actually, and we had a situation where there were so many cables coming in that it's like an elephant trunk for the cables. But anyway, just
okay.
Take you forward.
Phone calls. We're going to go to 916 first. 916, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What is on your mind this evening?
Hey, Doug. Joe, it's your friend from retired firefighter. I'm on the road from Merced heading back to Sacramento, and I've just been listening to you guys. And I would say, Joe, if you can go to Daniel 7, verse 25. And if we could just read a couple of those scriptures, and I just ask the Holy Spirit to touch everybody in the name of Jesus. The message I'm getting simple. Repent, the kingdom of heaven is at hand.
Chapter 7, verse...
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You got it.
It's 7:25, and Daniel says, "And he shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws, and they shall be given into his hand until a time and times and the dividing of time. But the judgment shall sit, and they shall take away his dominion to consume and destroy it unto the end. And the kingdom..." You want me to stop there?
Yeah, go ahead.
"And the kingdom and dominion and greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Hitherto is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my cogitations much troubled me, and my countenance changed in me, but I kept the matter in my heart.
Amen. We'll stop right there. And everybody's going through stuff right now, every one of us. And Doug, I'll tell you, it's been an incredible 30 days, but I'll tell you, I want to give a good report. The kingdom of God is advancing as we speak, and he's using you guys in such an awesome way. And I just ask God right now in Jesus' name that your peace that is so incredible will touch all your listeners right now. Because as I'm driving back from Merced, amen, thank you, Lord Jesus. I'm telling you, Merced I've never seen a town with so many demonized people. I grew up there in 1964, moved from there in 1983, and I go back, because it's still kind of my hometown, and it's so sad. But every time I go back, I take my shofar, and today I got to pray with some people, pray with some police officers and some Jehovah false witnesses, and just go in. But I've never seen it gets worse. But I think of that scripture where it says, I think it's Isaiah 60 where it talks about, the end times when the gross darkness would be upon the face of the earth, but, for the brightness of the Lord. And I just need to do this right now. Hallelujah. That's my shofar. And,
hopefully you weren't doing that when you were driving, were you?
Oh, that's one of the great things that God gifted me with. Hallelujah.
Okay. Well, wait. You said your brother's in the hospital? I'm sorry. No. And he had an overload. He had his circuit breaker, which a lot of people are going through right now. It's shorted out. And he's under a lot of pressure. But the more that we rejoice, I'm amazed. It's been amazing. And all I can say is thank you, Lord. And not by might, nor by power, but by the Spirit of living God, as I go in to have some food right now, that you would just touch your listeners. I ask God Almighty that just your great power, your fire, and your grace would just extend to Joe and Doug and to the listeners right now, Abba. I ask God, I don't come with eloquent words, I just come with your power of your kingdom. And that's it, guys. I just feel like the Lord's saying, what are you Christians doing for me? That's what I feel like the Lord. What are you doing for me? What are we doing for the Lord? And we need to reach out and just go to people and just say, repent. Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And then watch what he does. So I love you guys, and peace out. All right, brother.
I love you too. God bless, and you have a great night. And thank you so much for the call.
Fantastic. I love the sound of this shofar. I really do.
Yeah. Especially the ones that are
I just have
creative from without using the actual instrument.
Well, I think he used the actual instrument.
I don't think so. I think that was just
no.
him making a noise.
No.
You think he has a shofar?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Hold on, we're gonna ask him. All right, we had to bring it back up. Was that an actual shofar, or is that shofar?
No, I'm going to get it right now. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. No, the Lord gifted me with this. This is a big one. It's a kudo horn, and I travel all over the world. So I drove across America and sounded my shofar. So, Father, touch Joe. Foundation of Yahweh, Yeshua, one love.
All right, thank you,
brother. All right, see you.
I love you.
Joe.
It was a little more clear that time with the change of the pitch, but no, I know people can be very creative in making sounds. But
what the caller said though, and I've been seeing this. Can you imagine, folks? Can you imagine right now, Obama or look at where we're at today with this health care. You had mentioned this before the break. Obama and Sebelius, their abuse of religious freedom, ladies and gentlemen, I believe justifies vigorous civil disobedience as we speak as Christians, and I would even go so far as to say as conservatives, if you want to take the Christian element out of it, which I don't.
Okay, well then, We should go to the calls.
Yeah,
I don't want to get into this
fine.
because if we're going to be biblically accurate, when the Lord tells us how to conduct ourselves in the face of persecution, in the face of oppression.
Well, let me ask this one question before we go to the calls.
And I'm not saying this civil disobedience is wrong, but But wait a second. You've got to take a stand. If you are a Christian, a thinking Christian, let me ask this question. I'm not saying it's all over.
Okay, but let me ask this question. What would Obama do if millions, if all of the Catholics, will say, the Jews and the evangelicals banded together and to practice civil disobedience against the healthcare mandate, the law, healthcare law?
You want to know what he would do?
The costs, no, wait a second. The costs of civil disobedience are high if just a few practice it. But if we all banded together, or the majority, because we've got the numbers and it's a numbers game, they would grow scared. I contend the tyrants, these,
or they'd have the other shoe drop.
Well, would widespread civil disobedience shock Obama enough?
No.
To sign a law?
No.
Rescinding that order?
Not at all. And you know why I say that? Because it wasn't his decision to implement it in the first place, and it wouldn't be his decision to do anything to stop it in the outcry of the public, because they are doing what they are told to do. If they get out of line, we know what happens to presidents who don't follow orders, to people who don't follow orders in places of power. They are, like I say, just like mainstream media, TV talking heads. They read what's on. They're paid to read what's on the teleprompter. They're paid to read what speeches are given to them, and they're paid to be the face of the agenda that's implemented in their name by the shadow elite that runs the globe. In my opinion,
we cannot violate our religious beliefs, nor can we violate our consciences. And William Lori, he is, I believe, a Catholic bishop out of Baltimore, told Congressman Trey Gowdy, this is back now a year or two ago, I think it was in February of 2012, when he was, there were Republican hearings on the health care mandate, and he was asked just a simple question: would you go to jail rather than comply with this decree? He said, we're not going to violate our consciences. Now, think about that. Now, and I'll leave it at that. But I contend that we must exercise civil disobedience, not comply, and we must do it on a wholesale level. And because I will not violate my spiritual beliefs over this mandate, this law. I'm just not going to do it. And frankly, I'd love if everyone stood together, every practicing or every Bible-believing Christian would do the same.
This might help you understand where I'm coming from a little bit better. The tyranny aspect, when you go look at the root word of Babylon, it's the root word definition says a type of tyranny. So when Daniel was told to worship the statue of Nebuchadnezzar, he didn't. He engaged in an act of civil disobedience, you could say.
Right, and he paid the price, did he not?
Well,
ultimately,
they thought he was going to pay the price, but he was he was protected and used as an example of the Lord's power and his ability and willingness to save those who trust in him wholeheartedly.
Right. Yeah, and that was poorly worded on my part. I mean, they set out to make an example of him. However, you see, I believe something spiritual will happen if every Christian, if every man and woman of faith stood up and said, you know what, we're not going to violate our conscience. We're not going to violate our religious principles. We're not going to violate our spiritual principles. We're not going to comply. Because you cannot force us to go against our religious beliefs because of some law. I'm sorry, you're not going to do that. And I will stand up and say that. And, look, if a few do, there's going to be problems. But if the numbers are there, then there won't be problems. I truly believe they will back down. law or no law, Roberts and the Supremes or no Supremes, what choice will they have? That's just my view. Go ahead and you can go to the calls.
770, we're coming to you next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Thanks for holding. What is on your mind tonight?
Hi, Doug and Joe. Listen, that was a great conversation you were just having. I called about something else, but about what you were just talking about, I think an uprising is coming. However, it's ordained. America is under judgment, and her end is near. So the bottom line, the way I see it, is we just have to be ready for the Lord Jesus. That's it. Forget patriotism and everything. America is Babylon the Great, and she's going to burn as Sodom and Gomorrah in God's judgment. But that's not why I called. The reason I called is you both will probably think I'm loony, but
that's all right.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I
that's all right.
Be.
We're loony.
No. You're
Go ahead.
You're a great team, father and son. What you were talking about earlier in the show, all's well that ends well. You make a great team.
Well, thanks.
But anyway, you're quite welcome. Anyway, my thing is, speaking of Fukushima, I just can't believe that it was an accident. That's why I'm loony. I just can't believe it. And
you're not that far off. I don't think.
Oh, really?
I don't believe so. I was thinking about that when you were talking about it earlier. Henry Hoover talked about it. Some of our guests have talked about it. There's a possibility that was engineered.
Oh, this is so cool. All right, because I thought I was really going against the tide, and I was just being crazy. But this is the reason why I didn't believe it from the get-go. Shortly before Fukushima, it was announced that it was publicized that the Japanese designed a car to run on water. Now, that's happened before even in America, but the man in America who designed a car to run on water, he was murdered. But anyway, they designed a car that would run on water, and I said to myself, uh-oh, that's not going to make the Rockefellers too happy and all the oil, elite people. And then the other thing was the Japanese people were demonstrating in the streets, carrying signs saying, American soldiers, get out of Japan. We don't want American military in Japan. Leave our country. All very hostile signs towards America. They were very angry about American military being on their land. They wanted them out. And so when the tsunami happened, I just said, uh-oh, they got out of line, seems to me.
Well, regardless of the reason, and here's why I don't think you're loony at all, because once again, I refer back to a conversation I had with somebody in the know about this, who said, look, what we're seeing, think of John on the Isle of Patmos, or when he was exiled there, and writing the Book of Revelation, and describing things that really didn't make any sense, or at that time wouldn't make sense. Well, let's fast forward a couple thousand years. Is it possible that there's weaponry out there, that our technology is advanced so far that there are things that we could look at today? If we saw something today that was 100 years in the future, so far advanced, maybe, or 50 years even, that we might not recognize it for what it really is and describe it as
absolutely
something like
absolutely
very much like John of Patmos. So Now, having said that, if there are, and I do believe there are weapons and things that are engineered that are advanced, is it possible that they could modify or do something with the weather or an earthquake or cause an earthquake? And maybe it wasn't. Maybe the fact of destroying that particular power plant was not their intent, but it was. It happened. It was like, whoops, well, the experiment worked, but we just didn't calculate it was going to do this. Regardless, I believe that you're not that far off, and but I would take it one step further and say, look, I do believe that this was caused by something that we don't quite understand yet. Much like 9/11, I believe that technology was used that we don't understand. But
I agree with you also there, yes.
So I would not rule anything out, because don't forget, the ultimate goal is to reduce the world's population down to 500 million people. And that's not look, how are you going to do that? That's a perfect way. With plausible deniability, no less. So you're not that far off.
Oh, okay. So I thought you really think that was loopy. Okay, super. I'm really feel,
Well, that is, of course, until you hang up, then we're going to make fun of you, like most talk show hosts do. No, of course not. Of course not. We don't do that. That's one thing we have a rule. We don't do that. No, but I think you're probably more right than wrong. Look, I don't know. We don't know what happened.
No, not for sure. And I don't know. We'll know when everything's said and done, when prophecy is fulfilled, and this world is gone and past. I believe a lot of things will be revealed to us. But there were lots of reports and rumors that something the Japanese government did or didn't do was the reason that was done to them, because of their lack of willingness to go along with the plan. But I could be wrong. Those could be rumors.
I wasn't off then. So it was something possibly that they didn't fall into step. Do you know what that could be, or is just you don't know?
No, well, the only thing that the best explanation and most plausible explanation I heard was nuclear devices detonated on the seafloor. But
why did it happen?
Why?
Yeah, why?
I don't know if it was something to do with the currency, Japan not going along with the plan. I don't remember. It is something that I will look into and see if I can find again. And as I said, the stuff wasn't fact, but it was being reported. So yeah, I can find what I did before and talk about it next week.
Great. Thanks so much. It was very interesting. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the call. Have a great weekend.
Have a good one.
Great call.
Bye-bye.
Great call. Bye-bye. Seriously, there are things, Joe, that we don't know that are so far advanced that even today, if we would look at it, we know we might not recognize it for what it is, and I think that this is part of it.
Things we don't know. You speak for yourself there.
Yeah. Okay.
Every day that goes by, I realize there's actually less and less I really know, and that is the truth.
I want to say one thing, and folks, please ruminate on this, because I had written this before the show, and I think it's important for us to understand in preparation for this show. In fact, I was going to open up with this statement, and of course I didn't. But think about this. Not too long ago we were talking about expecting the unexpected. I do believe something is going to happen here that is going to be changing based on the information I received from my insider at the DHS and based on the information I received from other sources. I believe that we are about to get sucker punched, but I don't. Based on the combination of sources, I think it's going to be it's going to originate from something we're not going to see coming, and I equate it to this. Imagine you're on a dirt road in an old town, maybe 150 40 years ago, 130 years ago. You're in the West, and you hear the hoofbeats behind you of something galloping.
Janet Napolitano. That was mean. I'm sorry.
You hear hoofbeats, and you're walking, on this dirt path, and you turn around. What do you expect to see, Joe? What do you expect to see when you turn around? And you're in a Wild West town or a Western town, and you hear hoofbeats. This is before cars.
I would expect to see some kind of big wildlife, depending on how loud the noise was.
No, wouldn't you expect to see a horse galloping?
A horse, a buffalo. I've never been out west, but
okay. We'll just leave it at a horse, okay?
You talking about wild colts, or are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about somebody riding a horse. Okay. Don't make it harder than what it is. Oh my goodness.
No, okay.
Give me that nerve pad. All right.
So,
but see,
you're out in the desert. Okay. You hear something hoofing up behind you.
Desert. Well, okay. And in the West.
You turn around, you got a man on a horseback.
Well, that's what you'd expect to see. But I believe, and this is allegorical to what I believe is coming, you're going to turn around, and instead of seeing a horse, it's going to be a zebra. Now, think about that for a moment. It's something totally unexpected.
Even a unicorn.
Well, that too.
I mean, that's the times we're living in. The times that never were and never will be again.
But so the reason I mention that is because people have been saying, the sources have been saying, expect the unexpected. It's not going to be. Chances are we're not going to see what we think. It's not going to happen the way we think it's going to happen.
Well, we're waiting for an economic collapse.
Yeah.
We're going to get hit with an asteroid. If we're waiting for a solar flare, an asteroid to come, we're going to have some type of terrorist attack. That's how it always is. People were looking for the next mass shooting, and then the Boston Marathon happened.
Something on that order, but on a larger, grander scale. And I think that's the mindset we have to be in. So when you turn around expecting to see a horse galloping or somebody riding a horse galloping, and suddenly it's a zebra, don't be surprised. I guess that's the point I was trying to make. So interesting allegory anyway here. Perhaps I've oversimplified it, but that's the way it is. Okay.
Moving back to the phone calls, we got 20 minutes left. We're going to get as many phone calls as we can in. We're going to go to area code 305, then 906. 305, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi. You there?
Good evening. Yes.
Hi.
We're here. Hi.
I just wanted to, first I was going to talk about Fukushima, but I'm just going to let that go. I'm going to touch on this real quick. A week ago, last weekend, I was awake. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I decided I was going to get up. But before I got up, I had just like it wasn't a dream. It was just like a quick vision, just like a flash. And it bothered me, so I got up and I emailed Nathan Leal, and he emailed me back. But this is what the vision was. I had a vision of the Google barge, and right next to it in the vision was the Trojan horse, the Greek Trojan horse.
Oh.
And so I emailed Nathan, and he emailed me back and said, interesting. So the other day, a couple of days ago, I was over at the Judge Report early in the morning, because I'm a morning person. I'm up at like 4 in the morning. I can't sleep. I'm up. It's a good time to think. So
Absolutely.
I was up, and I was reading the Judge Report, and I seen it said Google had an update on information about their barge. So, I figured, well, it's going to be BS, but I'll look at it, and then I'll scroll down, because I read the comments. People that write in.
You always have to read the comments. Absolutely.
Okay? So I read this one comment, and this one guy says, well, that's BS. Go to this link. And so I go to the link, and the link is a YouTube link for John Moore show for the morning of the 6th. And that morning of the 6th, the first 2 minutes of John Moore's show said that he had intel source, background source, Navy SEAL said that those Google barges, the real meaning, that what they really are, is control and command center for foreign troops. That they're going to house foreign troops, and it's a control center for them for the invasion of the country. So I guess I took that as a confirmation of it being the Trojan horse.
Right. When you, the Trojan horse next to the vision you had. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it was a real quick vision flash, and it was a picture thing. There was no, the Lord didn't speak to me in words. He spoke to me with picture. Okay, because I see things. I don't always get a verbal message. It's a vision message.
Right.
Visual.
And I know. And I know people like that, no words, just images. But I've got to tell you, and I suspect that most listeners would agree with me, the existence of these barges and how they're constructed. You're talking about the shipping containers, essentially on a pontoon-type device, and the secrecy surrounding them. That should be of concern for everyone.
And I understand there's like 4 of them now, and I was talking to a friend of mine this morning, and he reads a lot of old military books. They're not. I don't know if you call them fiction or what you call it, but he said that he read in a book that Hitler used barges to move troops around on, and that he invaded Northern European country, and by bringing in barges that had troops on them. So kind of like, they did when they, with the Trojan horse, that the people were asleep, and the next thing they knew, there was all these troops inside the horse, inside the gate.
Interesting. Yeah. It's...
So these barges could be pulled into ports at night when people are sleeping, and the next thing you know, you got thousands of foreign troops.
Well, let me just nudge you in a different direction, slightly different direction. I think you were right when you said command and control and communication.
Right.
I don't think that these are going to be housing any fair number of troops, but I do believe that they have the possibility of being a command and control center for whatever might be taking place on the continent of the United States. That said,
Well, think about how
doesn't
Google
right.
controls all these satellites and stuff, too, up above us. They could be projecting anything, holograms. They could be taking out communications. They could be projecting, messages like those elf waves. And who knows? I mean, really.
Right.
They're,
right.
They're... Whatever. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. I'll let you go.
Thanks. Thanks for sharing that.
Talk.
All right. Thank you so much.
Fantastic calls tonight. Moving right along here, we're going to go to area code 906. Thank you for your patience. You're live on air on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Yeah, Doug and Joe. I'd like to thank you for all your hard work and 15 hours of fellowship in my house week. But I called you. I was the one that called you last week, and I was going to find you that email on Fukushima. I'm glad you guys are keeping it in the news. They wiped that one out real quick, so I apologize. I should have downloaded it, kept it, but I didn't. It's one of those days that was pretty hectic around the house. But the last caller, the lady that you had that said that she felt that it wasn't a natural deal, and I believe that, too, because of the HARP system that they got. And Joe pretty much touched on it, because everything that I've been watching over the last 2.5 years is about an economic reason why they would have done it, because Japan started talking trade with China. They probably did step out of line in a way. But I was going to call you about, you had a gentleman on last night named Michael. And he talked a lot about what was going on in the military, being an ex-vet myself, and you couldn't really understand why a lot of these officers are getting purged, that they're not coming out and speaking out. Well, most of them at their age are pretty much married gentlemen. You make an oath to God and your wife too. I mean, it kind of overrides. This is a spiritual battle that was inside these people, because their first oath is to God and their wives, their families. That's why they can't step out of line. They know the danger when they do. Most of the people that you do see that are the main whistleblowers are usually single men or women, ones that, you know, are willing to take that chance right now in life. So, I mean, it's a spiritual struggle, and I'm glad that you guys are keeping up with this Fukushima, because, I mean, God's laid it on my heart that, you know, for 2.5 years now, all I've been able to do is research. I'm fortunate that I got the perfect love of my life that, you know, gives me the chance to, you know, spend 8-10 hours a day researching all this stuff. It's like waking up on a whole different planet, but you can't be afraid of it. I mean, you got to face it.
Right, and you brought up something. I know it's peripheral to what you called about, but I just want to say this to the men listening in the audience: aren't we lucky? Aren't we very fortunate to have, if you are married, to have your spouse, your wife, support you in your research, in your beliefs, in isn't that great? I mean, what you said just now, being married to someone who allows you that gives you that freedom and perhaps even prompts you to go out there and do the research, to be the man of the family in that sense, depending upon you and all of us for the information to stay viable, to keep your family safe and viable in these troubling times. I think that's just that in itself, by itself, is a story by itself. I really believe that that's so important. I want to thank my wife and our wives, speaking for the men, for allowing us to take part in this battle in which we fight.
Right. There was a gentleman that I read an article. His name is Benjamin Fulford. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's an author from Canada that lives in
New Age. New Age. Was that the Globalist Lightsaber Federation? Yeah.
Yep. Did you read that article that he just put out just a couple of days ago?
No, I will not read his stuff because I know the associations he has with certain. It's a New Age.
Right.
In my opinion, it's just a New Age
you got to flip what he says.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What he's saying right there. I read it no matter who might write it, because that's where you got, just like mainstream media, whatever they say, I flip it and look at it as the opposite. But
right.
I'm with you, caller.
I'm with you. It sounds like they're setting up the young cabal to overthrow the old cabal, is what it really sounds like.
You make a good point there. In other words, I believe
the young ones are in power.
Okay.
You know, and so it really looks like this.
Did we lose him? I think we might have lost him.
I think you're right. He did drop off. If you call back, we will come back to you. We're going to go.
But that's a good point, though. I just want to put the exclamation point on that.
Look how many. I monitor, especially MSNBC and CNN for all the stuff I can find, and that's just very wrong. The way they say things, the way that they manipulate things. I'm not saying it was wrong to read it. I was just saying personally, I've I did a lot of research on him, and there was a couple other people involved in their little group, and the information that has come out of there is just ridiculous. Like I said, the Drake guy was, I think, part of that, where he talked about UFOs were here to save us, and they were sucking up the chemtrails, and they got indigestion from doing it, so they had to stop. I mean, it was just crazy stuff. And then some of the people will give you part of an article, like 2 paragraphs, and then ask for like $2.99 to read the rest of it. And they promote, the one consciousness, and
right.
It's
right
troublesome. Anyway, we're going to go to, this might be an international call. I'm not sure. 16 country code maybe?
Let's bring the call on.
They are live.
Caller, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hello?
Yes, that is you.
Oh, hi. Hi, Joe and Doug. This is Reese calling from Australia.
Oh, good day, mate.
How's it in the down under?
It's hot, mate. It's actually pretty hot, but g'day to you both. I suppose we had to get that out of the way, didn't we?
Well, what's on your mind from down under?
Well, I've been listening to you guys pretty avidly, and I've only actually recently caught up on your catalogue, so now I'm listening to you live. But I was just wanting to call up, just with regards to what you guys were talking about with Fukushima and your first, the caller, the lady.
Uh-huh.
What I've read, and I've got two articles in front of me, and I couldn't find the original articles, they've seemingly gone missing, but essentially what these were saying was that this was a warning from the, well, I know this might sound a bit sus to you guys, but the American and the Israeli government to stop the supply of Japan, between Japan and Palestine, which apparently, it's from the American Free Press, but the impression that it gives me is that the leading Japanese journalist made accusations that not only was Mossad on site with nuclear devices, but he also infers that HAARP was being used. So the nuclear devices were placed offshore on the continental shelf and set off, and then that was exacerbated by HAARP. But the reason behind that, he is saying, is because Japan was about to make a deal with Iran to transfer materials that could be used in weapons purposes, for nuclear weapons, I presume. So that's just a tidbit that I thought that you might find interesting. And if you like, I can send you those links so you can research and validate that yourself.
If you don't mind, I'd love to see that. Director at HomelandSecurityUS.com. If you go to HomelandSecurityUS.com, our email is on the left. Yeah, feel free to send that.
Okay.
Interesting premise, to be sure. As to motive.
Oh, for sure. I mean, but at the end of the day, we both understand it's not Israel or America or Japan, or it doesn't matter about the countries. It's the 1% of the population that control 99% of the wealth and all of what goes on. And every population has the demographics of people who are, statistically not as nice as others. So to say that it is Israel or it is America is a farce, and that's just like promoting racism, if you ask me. So I prefer to look at it ideologically speaking, and that clearly these people are from the Illuminati and they're Luciferian, and at the end of the day they're going to twist and turn and make everyone think it's blacks, whites, Asians, Hispanics, whoever. I mean, it's all irrelevant. We're the same species. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. It matters what ideologies you have in your head. So it's quite obvious, it's just a thing to get people angry at America and Israel. And also just on this topic, I really wanted to thank you guys, because not only do you give, and I'm being very quick because there's only 4 minutes and I presume we've got other callers, but the reason I wanted to call you is because I wanted to thank you. In the past, say, 6 to 8 months, I've been coming back to Jesus, and now I'm fully, I feel like I'm fully back there, but immersing myself in the Word of God. And in doing so, I've come across people like yourself, Joe, nice to meet you, and Doug, nice to meet you. And, I've sort of felt a bit strange because I'll constantly listen to you guys. I laugh at your jokes, but I'm always sort of alone in my computer room. It feels a bit strange. And then there's Steve Quayle, who's absolutely amazing. And then you've got the Reverend that comes on. I don't watch television, but I will sit down and after work, I will listen to your show, because you don't get this information on the news. You don't get it anywhere, but we can't find out this information that you guys have, because there's a media blackout between Australia media and American media. So we don't get the full story either. So I have to go to you guys to get the story on what's going on. And all I can say is I really pray for you guys, and you guys have to push so hard to become higher profile, because the higher profile you are, the least likely it is that they're going to suddenly knock you off. So I've been spreading your names around, and I've been spreading your broadcast around to all of my friends and associates, just for the fact that, with the things that you talk about, you've got God protecting you, but there's forces working against you. So in my own way, I'll try and make people aware of these people, so that in the odd chance, or in the off chance that something bad does happen, it can always be brought back to who did this, and then you can draw reasons why. But I pray to God that never happens. But, I'm just saying, spread the word, make people more aware of you, because in Australia, I mean, we're on the New World Order list as well. Australia is a mini America, and New Zealand is no different. So the influence here is strong. My wife is going to see Beyonce tonight, and I actually asked her if she could tell me if there's any goat head symbolism or anything strange from the wardrobe that she could take pictures of and send to me so that I could send it on, just for the purposes of those Illuminati symbols. But yeah, I just wanted to call, say thank you very much, give you that little tidbit, and I'll email you those links. But just thanks very much for doing what you do, because at the end of the day, I asked God to send me in the right direction where I could get this information, and then bang, it happened, and I was like, wow, you work fast, man. You work faster than Google. And
wow. How great is that?
Well, it's nice to meet you.
It's a pleasure to hear from you, and please call in anytime. And we consider you a extended member of our family, and so glad to have listeners in Australia. And we know that we've got quite a few down there. Perhaps thanks to you, we do appreciate spreading the word.
Absolutely,
man.
It's no worries, boys. Right. No worries. It's all we can do.
Well, my friend, thank you, and once again, the obligatory good day, mate. I just like saying that.
Have a good weekend.
All right.
I just want to say God bless you.
And, thank you very much.
Talk soon. All right, folks. So we're at the end.
Just I think what we've been blessed with this platform to speak to people and to be able to reach people in Australia or London or the North Pole. It boggles my mind. We are so blessed, and
it's not us,
right?
It really